The rain had just started to fall when Anna parked her car in the farthest corner of the lot. The studio lights still glowed behind her like a distant memory. She didn't turn off the engine. She didn't move. Just sat there, both hands, gripping the steering wheel like it might hold her together. The windows began to fog from her breath, and still she didn't move. In the quiet hum of the car, only one sound existed louder than the rain. It was the sound of her thoughts, crashing into each other, louder than thunder. She had walked off set 15 minutes ago. No one followed. No one stopped her. Not the director, not the assistant, not even the makeup girl who always asked if she needed water. The silence behind her wasn't just professional, it was personal. Something had shifted. Something had cracked open inside her, and now she was in her car staring at a reflection in the foggy rearview mirror, wondering if anyone even noticed she was gone. She didn't cry. Not yet. Crying meant accepting the weight of what she was feeling, and Anna wasn't ready. Not tonight. Not after the scene they had shot. Not after the look in the director's eyes when she missed her mark again. It wasn't just disappointment. It was something sharper, like judgment, like impatience. It's like a question she didn't have the answer to anymore. Then came a sound. A single knock on the passenger window. Just once. It's not loud, not rushed. Anna blinked and turned her head slowly. Through the misty window, she saw him, Keanu, standing there in the rain, not saying a word, not motioning for her to roll down the window, standing, waiting. Her first thought was to pretend she hadn't seen him. She didn't want to be seen like this. Not by him, especially not by him, because if anyone could see past the performance, it was Keanu. And right now, she wasn't performing. She was unraveling. She rolled the window down halfway. Rain drifted in, cold, sharp, honest. "You okay?" Keanu asked gently, his voice like the calm before a storm. She opened her mouth to lie, but the words didn't come. Instead, she nodded. He didn't believe her, she could tell, but he didn't challenge her either. He just took a small step back, gave her space, and leaned slightly against the side of the car. The rain continued falling, soaking through his jacket, making his hair drip. But he didn't flinch. Anna looked at him through the open window. "Why are you here?" He shrugged. Felt like you shouldn't be alone right now. Her throat tightened. No one else had said that. No one else had even noticed. But Keanu noticed. He always noticed the things no one else did. "I messed up," she whispered. Keanu didn't move. "You didn't mess up. And why does it feel like I'm disappearing?" Her voice cracked on the last word, and it made her wince. Hadn't meant to be that honest. She hadn't meant to give that much away. Keanu didn't answer right away. He stayed quiet, letting the questions settle in the space between them. "Maybe," he said finally, "because you're carrying too much. And no one's asked you to put it down." Anna looked away. Tears blurred the edge of her vision, but she blinked them back. She hated crying in front of people. But somehow, with Keanu, it felt less like weakness and more like truth. "Do you want to talk?" he asked. Anna shook her head. "I don't think I can right now." Keanu nodded like he understood. And then he did something that caught her off guard. He walked around the car, opened the driver's door slowly, and gestured toward the passenger side. "Then let's just drive," he said softly. "No talking, just air." Anna hesitated. She looked at the empty seat beside her. Then she looked at the studio building behind them, its tall walls holding in too many eyes and too much silence. Slowly, she slid over to the passenger side. Keanu got in, closed the door, started the engine again. Neither of them said a word as he drove out of the parking lot. The wipers moved across the windshield like a heartbeat steady, unbothered. Outside, the city blurred into a quiet blur of wet streets and dim lights. Inside, something fragile began to thaw. Anna leaned her head against the window. "Do you ever feel like you don't belong? Even in the place you work so hard to reach?" Keanu didn't answer right away. When he did, it was so quiet she almost didn't hear it all the time. That's when the tears came, not loud, not messy, just slow and honest. She wiped them away fast. But Keanu never looked at her, never made her feel exposed. Instead, he reached into the console, pulled out a napkin, and held it toward her without turning his head. She took it with trembling fingers. The car kept moving. The night kept raining, and for the first time in weeks, Anna didn't feel like she had to explain herself. She just had to breathe. And someone, finally, was breathing beside her. Keanu didn't ask where she wanted to go. He just drove. Not fast, not slow. Like he was giving her time to think between every red light. The streets were quiet now. It's a kind of quiet that doesn't demand anything. It just lets you exist, Anna. Didn't say much at first. Just stared out the window, watching the rain tap against the glass like it had something gentle to say. Maybe that's what she needed tonight. Something soft. Something that didn't talk over her thoughts. He turned left without warning, down a street she didn't recognize. The buildings here were older. Trees lined the road, and their leaves shimmered wet under the street lamps. Then he pulled into a small lot beside a closed bookstore. He parked the car, turned off the engine, and leaned back in his seat without saying a word. Anna looked at him. He looked ahead. Minutes passed. Finally, she asked, "Why here?" He smiled a little, not the kind that performed, the kind that remembered. "This was my safe place," he said. Back when things were heavy, she looked at the bookstore again. The windows were dark, but there was something warm about the place. Even closed, it looked like it would still welcome someone inside. "You used to come here? All the time," he said. "After long shoots, after hard days, the owner let me sit in the back with coffee and silence, didn't ask questions." Anna nodded. "That sounds nice." "It was," he said. "It still is. Sometimes it's not the place, it's the permission it gives you." Anna looked at him, puzzled. Permission for what? He turned to her, to fall apart, to not have all the answers, to just be tired without apologizing for it. Those words hit something deep inside her, because she had been tired for weeks, not just from work, from holding it all together, from pretending she wasn't overwhelmed, from carrying expectations like armor and still feeling like she wasn't. Enough. "What if I don't know how to put myself back together?" she asked, her voice low. Keanu looked down at his hands and said softly, "You don't have to. Not all at once. Not alone." Those words sat between them for a while. They didn't need to be explained. They didn't need to be rushed. Anna closed her eyes, leaned back into the seat, breathed. Then out of nowhere, she laughed. Not loud, but real. Keanu looked over. "What?" She shook her head. "I just remembered something stupid. The first time I ever saw you. I was 16. It was The Matrix. I was in Havana. The power kept cutting out, so we watched it in 3 different parts over 2 days. I thought you were a real-life robot." Keanu chuckled. "You weren't the only one. You were so still, so calm, and now here you are. Still calm, still still." "Maybe I am a robot," he said, "but one that brings napkins and drives people around in the rain." She laughed again. And this time, it didn't feel forced. It felt like air. They sat like that, the two of them, under the soft flicker of a street lamp. The rain slowed outside. The bookstore stayed closed, but something inside Anna was slowly opening. "Thank you," she said quietly. Keanu turned to her. "For what?" "For noticing." He didn't ask what she meant. He didn't need to. Just nodded, like he understood. The silence came back, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not empty, not heavy. Just full of things neither of them had to say out loud. Keanu reached down and turned the key halfway, letting the radio hum to life. Soft jazz played. Nothing dramatic. Just notes that floated like fog. Anna leaned her head back. Eyes closed. "You. Know what scares me the most?" She whispered. Keanu waited. "That I'll lose myself trying to be what everyone expects." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to stop trying." She looked at him. "Just like that?" "Not just like that," he said. "But maybe just tonight. Let yourself be human again." Those words held weight, not like a burden, like a blanket. Soft, warm, real. "I don't know if I remember how," she said. "Then let's figure it out together," he replied. They stayed in the car a while longer. Neither of them moved. Neither of them needed to. Finally stopped. When they pulled out of the lot, Anna felt something shift. It wasn't that the pain was gone. It wasn't that everything was fixed. But she wasn't alone anymore. And for tonight, that was enough. As Keanu drove her home, he didn't ask about tomorrow. He didn't offer advice. He didn't talk about movies or fame or how strong she needed to be. He just drove. And Anna, for the first time in weeks, let herself rest. The next morning came slow. Anna woke up to sunlight spilling across her apartment floor like it had been waiting for her. She sat at the edge of the bed, bare feet on the cold tiles, eyes fixed on the little crack in the wall she'd never noticed. Before, it was strange how the smallest things stood out when your heart felt quiet. After weeks of noise in her mind, noise on set, noise from her own doubts, there was stillness now. Not peace exactly, but space. And that space had Keanu's fingerprints all over it. She made coffee without thinking. Strong, black, no sugar, her routine. But today, the taste made her pause. Bitter like yesterday, like the memory of the directors. Cold stare, like the feeling that every scene she shot lately wasn't good enough. Her phone buzzed. A message. Keanu, no rush. But if you feel like air again, I know a place. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, without replying, she grabbed her coat. Keanu was waiting outside a small diner near the edge of town. Not a place stars went, just people. Real ones. Truck drivers. Old couples. Waitresses with names stitched into their aprons. Anna parked across the street, took a breath, walked in. Keanu looked up as she entered but didn't say anything. We just pushed a mug toward her across the table. Hot tea, not coffee. She sat down. You came, said softly. You asked, she replied. They didn't talk for a while. They didn't have to. It's the clinking of silverware, the quiet chatter of strangers, and the sound of old music playing on a radio filled the space between them. You were right, Anna said finally. Keanu raised an eyebrow. About carrying too much. About forgetting to breathe. He gave a small nod. It happens to everyone, even the ones who look like they've got it all figured out. Anna looked down at her hands. I think I forgot why I started all this. The acting, the stories. I used to do it because it made me feel alive. Now it just feels like survival. Keanu leaned forward. That feeling. Got that data. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you care. She looked at him. How do you keep going? By remembering who I was before the world told me who I should be. That sentence made her blink hard. She wasn't sure why it hit her so deep. Maybe because she didn't know the answer for herself. Who was Anna before all this? Before red carpets? Before long nights memorizing lines that didn't feel like hers? Before critics and contracts? Who was she before she started trying to be enough? Do you ever think about quitting? She asked. Keanu smiled softly. Many times. But I also think about the kid I used to be. It's the one who watched movies with wide eyes and thought, maybe I could do that one day. I don't want to leave him behind. Anna nodded slowly. But what if that kid doesn't recognize me anymore? She whispered. Keanu's voice was gentle. Then maybe it's time to reintroduce yourself. They sat in silence after that. Not heavy, not awkward, but still. The kind of stillness that comes when someone sees you and doesn't flinch. When they left the diner, Anna looked different. Not outside. Inside. Something had shifted. Not everything. Not yet. But something. Keanu walked her to her car. She paused. Before getting in, what about you? You okay? He smiled. Some days yes, some days no. Today feels okay. She tilted her head. And yesterday? Yeah. He looked at her, eyes softer than she remembered. Yesterday felt better because I didn't have to say anything to help someone breathe. Anna opened the car door. But before she got in, she said something she hadn't said in a long time. I'm glad you knocked. Keanu nodded. Glad you didn't roll up the window? She smiled. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't wide. But it was real. As she drove away, she didn't feel like she was running. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was returning to herself later that evening. As the sun began to set behind the city's skyline, Anna sat by her window with a notebook in her lap. Pages blank, pen in hand, but she didn't write. Lines for a scene, she didn't rehearse. She just wrote. She wrote about the girl who watched movies in Havana. She wrote about the silence in her car, the knock that followed. She wrote about a man who said nothing but still heard everything. And for the first time, her words didn't feel like performance. They felt like healing. 3 days passed before they saw each other again. Not because Anna didn't want to, not because Keanu disappeared, but because sometimes healing needs space, and they both understood that. They didn't speak every day. They didn't fill the quiet with texts or calls. Instead, they let silence be something sacred, something safe, but the space wasn't empty. Anna had started writing each morning, just for herself, not for scripts, not for parts. She wrote feelings without judgment, questions without answers. She wrote like her heart was trying to remember how to breathe. On the 4th morning, her phone buzzed again. Keanu? I'm headed somewhere. It's a bit far. Feel like a drive. She didn't even think. Anna. Yes. They met at a gas station just before the highway turned into hills. Keanu was already there, leaning against his motorcycle, helmet in hand, with a brown paper bag sitting on the seat behind him. Anna pulled up in her small car and rolled down the window. You brought food? She smiled. Sandwiches, he said. And 2 bananas that might be past their prime, she laughed. You have a strange way of being comforting. He handed her one of the bags through the window. You'll thank me later. I took one car, hers. She didn't ask where. They were going. She didn't need to. Sometimes not knowing was the point. As they drove, the city disappeared behind them. Concrete gave way to open fields. Traffic lights turned to long, empty stretches of road. The kind of road where the sky feels bigger, like it's finally stretching after being curled up too long. Can I ask you something personal? Anna said. Her eyes on the road, Keanu turned to her. Of course. Why are you always calm? He thought for a moment before answering. 'Cause panic never helped me survive. Calm did. You've seen a lot? She asked gently. Enough to know? That peace is earned. And sometimes you earn it just by surviving the worst day without letting it steal your kindness. Anna nodded slowly. The road ahead shimmered in the heat. They drove in silence for a while, then Keanu pointed ahead. Pull over up there. Anna followed his hand and turned into a gravel path that led up a small hill. At the top was a wide, grassy lookout. Below, a valley opened wide with trees, scattered lakes, and one narrow train track slicing through the landscape like a thread in a patchwork quilt. This is beautiful, she whispered. It's quiet, he replied. And honest, they sat on a bench near the edge. The wind tugged at Anna's hair. Birds moved like slow poetry across the sky. I came here once after a really bad shoot, Keanu said. I had failed someone, not just professionally. Disappointed someone I respected. What did you do? Anna asked. I sat here and didn't talk, didn't explain. I just let the wind remind me that the world keeps going, even when I don't feel like I can. Anna closed her eyes. Used to think strength meant being perfect, she said. Act. But now I think, maybe it just means continuing. It does, he said. Continuing even when you don't get applause. Continuing when no one's watching. They stayed on the bench, slowly eating their sandwiches. Neither of them talked much. But every glance, every pause, every breath, shared between them, said enough. Then Keanu stood and walked a few steps forward. He pulled something from his jacket pocket and held it out. A photo. It was old. Faded. A black and white picture of him as a young man, standing in front of a small theater. What's this? Anna asked, taking it carefully. First time I ever auditioned, he said. I was terrified. I couldn't sleep the night before. I kept thinking I'd mess it up. Didn't even care about the role. I just didn't want to fail. Did you get it? She asked. No, he smiled. I froze, forgot half the lines. The director looked at me like I was wasting their time. Anna stared at the photo. And now you're you. And now I'm someone who still freezes sometimes, he said. But I show up anyway. Anna looked at him, really looked, not as the actor, not as the name, just as the man who understood fear, who had walked through failure and still kept kindness in his voice. Thank you for sharing this, she said. Softly. You reminded me why I kept it, he said. They stood together as the sun dipped behind the valley. And for the first time, Anna felt something rise inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that arrives when someone believes in you without needing you to prove anything. As they walked back to the car, Keanu said, "You're not broken, Anna. You're rebuilding." And for once she believed him. The city looked different when they returned. Not because it had changed. Not because the buildings were taller or the lights were softer, but because Anna had changed. Her eyes saw things with less fear now. The same streets that once felt like pressure now looked like possibility. The same set where she once felt invisible now seemed like a place she could enter on her own terms. But peace was not permanent. 2 days after their trip to the valley, Yana got a call from her agent. They wanted her back on set. The director had new scenes. There was tension in his voice, urgency, and beneath that impatience. Anna felt it in every word. Like the clock was ticking and she was already late, she agreed to return. Not because she was ready, but because something inside her said she had to face it. Not to prove them wrong, not to win anything, just to show herself that silence didn't mean surrender. Keanu offered to drive her, but she said no. "I need to walk into this one alone," she told him. He nodded. "Then I'll wait outside." Anna walked into the studio with her shoulders back and her breath steady. The lights were brighter than she remembered. The crew moved quickly. There was no small talk. No one asked how she was. She stepped into the makeup chair. The artist worked without eye contact. Anna looked into the mirror. For a moment, the doubt came crawling back. Then she remembered the hill, the wind, the silence, and Keanu's voice. "You're not broken. You're rebuilding." She straightened her spine on set. The director gave her the scene. It was intense, raw, emotionally heavy. He didn't look at her when he explained it. Just handed her the pages and said, "We're behind schedule. You know what to do?" Anna took the script and walked to the side. She read the lines. Once, twice, but something in her felt off. The words were strong, but they weren't hers. Not yet. She closed her eyes, breathed, and made a choice. When the camera rolled, she didn't just deliver the lines, she lived them. Not perfectly, not the way the director imagined. But honestly, her voice cracked where it needed to. She paused. When the moment called for it, she didn't force tears. She didn't chase applause. She just told the truth. When the scene ended, there was silence, not judgment, not correction, just quiet. Then the director said something he hadn't said in weeks. "Let's keep that one." Anna stepped off set slowly. The sound guy nodded at her. The lighting assistant smiled. Small gestures. They meant something. Outside, Keanu was leaning against the same wall she passed that first day she stormed out. He looked up as she approached. Didn't speak right away. She stopped in front of him. Exhaled. "I did it. I know," he said. Double quotes, "How?" "Because you're standing here." She sat down on the steps beside him. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her face was calm. "I didn't do it for them," she whispered. "I know," he repeated. "You did it for her? Who?" she asked. He looked at her softly. "The girl who watched movies in Havana, who believed stories could change people." Anna smiled, tears forming but not falling. "She's still here," she said. Keanu nodded. She never left. Later that night, they walked through the city, not as actors, not as stars, just as people trying to stay human in a world that asked them to be more. They passed a park with a small fountain. Anna stopped. "Do you ever think we're just trying to outrun who we used to be?" she asked. Keanu looked up at the stars. "Sometimes, but sometimes we're just trying to meet them again, to remind them we made it." Anna sat on the edge of the fountain, the cool stone beneath her legs grounding her. "I still have fears," she admitted. "Then you're alive," he said. "Fear doesn't mean failure. It means you care about what you're doing." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Just for a moment, thank you for waiting outside that night," she said. "Thank you for opening the door," he replied. And in that moment, under the quiet sky, two people who had carried too much found rest in something simple: presence. Not perfection, not answers, just presence. Weeks passed, the film wrapped quietly. No big speeches, no celebration, just tired crew members packing up cables and lights while the cast slipped away into waiting cars. Anna stayed behind longer than most. She stood near the edge of the set, watching the space she had once feared, once resented, once almost walked away from completely. Now she saw it differently. Not perfect, but honest. Keanu appeared beside her. No announcement. No noise. Just there, like he always was, offering space without asking questions. "You staying for the wrap dinner?" he asked. Anna shook her head. "Think I'm going to do something else tonight." "What's that?" "Go home, sit on the floor, and let silence talk to me for a while." He nodded. "Good choice." They walked out of the studio side by side. The air outside was cooler now. Autumn had arrived without anyone noticing. Leaves drifted down from the trees that lined the back lot, soft reminders that letting go could also be beautiful. Anna stopped at her car. Keanu looked at her. "You okay?" She thought about that question, not to give the answer someone wanted, but to give the answer that was true. "I think I'm getting there," she said. He smiled. "Then you're doing better than most." Anna leaned against the car door. "Do you remember that night you knocked on my window?" "Of course, why did you do it, really?" Keanu was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I've been there. I've sat in cars thinking no one would notice if I disappeared. And because silence can be dangerous when it becomes your only voice." Anna looked down. The memory of that night was still clear: the rain, the fogged glass, the ache in her chest she couldn't name, and the knock, the soft, patient knock. That didn't demand anything but changed everything. "You didn't have to stay," she whispered. "I know, but you did." "I always will," he said. Those words weren't romantic. They weren't meant to sweep anyone off their feet. They were steady, rooted, like a promise made with no strings attached. Anna opened her car door, sat behind the wheel, then paused. "Keanu." He leaned down slightly so his eyes met hers through the open window. "What if one day I forget again? What if I lose myself again?" He smiled gently. "Then I'll knock again." She didn't cry this time. She didn't have to. The tears had already done their work. "Okay," she said softly, and she meant it. That night, in her apartment, Anna pulled out the notebook she'd been writing in. This time, she didn't write pain. She wrote presence. She wrote about quiet, strength, about kindness that didn't need attention, about resilience that looked like rest. She wrote about someone who waited in the rain without asking for anything. And she wrote about the girl in Havana who still lived inside her. A knock at a window had reminded her. Months later, the movie came out. The reviews were mixed. Some called it forgettable. Others called her performance raw and honest. She didn't read many of them, because by then, something more important had happened. She found joy again, not in applause, but in peace. She said yes to roles that made her feel, not just perform. She took breaks when she needed them. She called her family more, she said. I don't know when she didn't have answers, and through it all, Keanu stayed close, never intrusive, never demanding, just present. Sometimes they met for tea. Sometimes they drove in silence. Sometimes they said nothing at all. But the space between them was never empty. Because once, when she had forgotten how to breathe, he had waited without asking why. One evening, much later, Anna sat on a bench overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting slow, gold spilling across the waves like a warm secret. She pulled out her notebook again, on a fresh page. He wrote 4 words. He knocked. I opened. Then she closed the notebook and smiled, not because the story was over, but because she was still writing it this time, with both hands open and her heart finally steady.